Today we are going to begin the lesson on subject-verb agreement, but before we can get to that, we are going to start with prepositions and prepositional phrases and infinitives and infinitive phrases. We are doing this to help you eliminate the extra information in a sentence and help you get down to what's called the subject and the verb to make sure that they agree. First, we must look at what a preposition is. A preposition may be defined as any word or group of words that relates a noun or a pronoun to another word in the sentence. However, prepositions never travel alone. They are always with an object. Therefore, we must really ask, what is a prepositional phrase? A prepositional phrase consists of a preposition and an object. The object of a preposition is always a noun or a pronoun, or perhaps one or two of each. Here is a list of the most common prepositions. Notice that I said most common. That does not mean all. If you think of a prepositional phrase, think of beginning a phrase with one of these words and ending with an object, a noun, or a pronoun. For example, I might say, about my mom, above the clouds, across the street, beside the table, despite my flaws, outside the circle, underneath the blanket, without my friends. On this list, the most common prepositions that you will see are to, with, in, for, at, and of. I would say those probably make up 25 or 30% of all sentences. Here is a list of the most common compound prepositions. That just means that multiple words are used to make up a single preposition. So we might say, according to my mom, a result of the accident, in agreement with the law. A very common mistake is that students often think that the words all and last are prepositions. They are not prepositions. They are not today. They will not be tomorrow. They will never be a preposition, so do not label them as such. Now we have the chance to practice our prepositional phrases. Remember that a prepositional phrase must begin with a preposition and end with a noun or a pronoun. Typically, it answers the questions what or whom. We identify prepositional phrases by putting parentheses around them. So the first sentence reads, Steve and Andy skated in Chicago at the rink. In what? Chicago. At what? The rink. A carton of oranges was placed on the counter. Of what? Oranges. On what? The counter. Sam had walked to the Taco Bell. To what? Taco Bell. Walk carefully under that ladder. Under what? The ladder. Before the bell, the pen had fallen to the floor. Before what? The bell. To what? The floor. Our group is happy to go to the zoo. To what? The zoo. Now you might think that this is a prepositional phrase, but it's not, but I will explain that one later. The reason we know it's not a prepositional phrase is because the word go is not a noun or a pronoun. This is actually what is called an infinitive. Sam ate quickly and went to the library. To the library is a prepositional phrase. I will take all of my children on the cruise. Of whom? Children. On what cruise? The teacher is only graded with a purple pen. With what? A pen. We have now found all of our prepositional phrases. Notice they all begin with a preposition and they end with a noun or a pronoun. Sentences may have one, they may have five, or they may have no prepositional phrases in a sentence. Now that we have done prepositional phrases, we are now going to do what's called an implied prepositional phrase. Implied means not directly stated. These are prepositional phrases that are missing the word of and typically follow the words all or both. So if you notice the first sentence, it says, I took all the boys to the paintball fields. I have a traditional prepositional phrase, to what? The fields, so I'm going to eliminate that. Next I have, I took all the boys. If I write the word of after all, I notice it says, I took all of the boys. That does make sense. So I have an implied prepositional phrase. The word of is implied after the word all. In the second sentence, it reads, both of the baby elephants were in Ohio. In what? Ohio is our traditional prepositional phrase. Then I see both the baby elephants. Once again, if I write the word of in there, I see that it says both of the baby elephants. Once again, I have an implied prepositional phrase because of the baby elephants is implied. In the third sentence, it reads, after the school week, I went to both movies. After the school week is a traditional prepositional phrase. Then I go on, and I notice right off the bat here that I have to both movies, but I want to check to see if I have an implied prepositional phrase. So I write the word of in there. I went to both of movies. That, of course, does not make any sense. So therefore, we do not have an implied prepositional phrase. Instead, I have the word to here, and it says to what? The movies. That is my actual traditional prepositional phrase. Now, to make matters a little bit worse, we also have what's called an infinitive. An infinitive will almost always begin with the word to, followed by the simple form of a verb. So think of it as an equation. To plus a verb equals an infinitive. So if you look down below, you will see it says, to shop after lunch sounds great. So I see the word to, I look at the word that immediately comes after, which is a verb, so I have what's called to shop. We put brackets around an infinitive. After lunch is my traditional prepositional phrase. Number 2, if she wants to slurp, she must leave. I see the word to here. I look at the word afterwards, which is a verb. To slurp is an infinitive. And I do not see anything else in the sentence. In the last sentence, it says, I want to swim in the ocean. I see the word to. I look at the word that comes after it, and swim is a verb, so therefore I now have what's called an infinitive. And then in what? The ocean, I have a traditional prepositional phrase. Now we saw what an infinitive is, which is the word to plus a simple verb. But there is also what's called an infinitive phrase. An infinitive phrase will begin with an infinitive, which as I said is the to plus a verb, but this time it includes a modifier or a noun or a pronoun. This equals an infinitive phrase. So if you look at the example, it says, I want to smash the spider on the wall. I see the word to, it's followed by a verb, so I have an initial infinitive. But now I need to not stop at just the infinitive. I need to check to see if I have an infinitive phrase. So I would say to smash what or to smash whom. And since the answer is spider, I have a full infinitive phrase. On the wall is a prepositional phrase. In sentence number 2, Jenny wants to kick the ball past the goalie. I see the word to. I look at the word afterwards, which is kick. Kick is a verb, so therefore, to kick what? The ball is an infinitive phrase. Past whom? The goalie is a prepositional phrase. And in my third sentence, to finish her shift without spilling coffee is her goal. I see the word to begin with. I see that the word finish is following the word to. Therefore, I have what's called an infinitive, to finish. But once again, I need to check to see if I have an infinitive phrase. To finish what? Her shift is an infinitive phrase. Without what? Spilling coffee is a traditional prepositional phrase. Now, the confusion here lies when we are looking at prepositions and infinitives and the word to. The reason it gets complicated is because to sometimes begins a prepositional phrase and sometimes to begins an infinitive or an infinitive phrase. So we must look at the word that comes immediately after to make the decision. So let's look below. I want to go to the mall to buy new shoes. Well, I see the word to here, here, and here. So I need to immediately look at the word that comes after the to, such as go, the, and buy. If it is a verb, I have an infinitive. If it is not a verb, I have a prepositional phrase. So, to go. Go is a verb, so I have the beginning of an infinitive phrase. To the. The is not a verb, so therefore that's the beginning of a prepositional phrase. To buy. Buy is a verb, so that is the beginning of an infinitive phrase. Now we need to see where they end. Well, in the first one, to go what or to go whom? We do not have an answer, so the infinitive ends right there. That is a simple infinitive, not an infinitive phrase. In the second one, to what, the mall, that is a prepositional phrase. And the last one, to buy, is the infinitive. To buy what? Shoes. So therefore, I have a full infinitive phrase. So in this sentence, you see an example of an infinitive, a prepositional phrase, and an infinitive phrase. Now look at the bottom one. To drive the new car to the prom, I need A's. Once again, I see two words, T-O. I'm going to look at the words that immediately follow them. In the first one, I have drive. Drive is a verb, so that is the beginning of an infinitive phrase. To drive what? I have an answer, so I have an infinitive phrase. In the next one, the is not a verb, so therefore I have the beginning of a prepositional phrase, to what? The prom, so I am now done. Now that we have gone over what a prepositional phrase is, what implied prepositional phrases are, what an infinitive is, and what infinitive phrases are, let's go ahead and practice them all together. So in the first sentence, the patient needed to rest for a good week. So we notice the word to right off the bat, and we notice the word for right off the bat. To is the beginning of either a prepositional phrase, an infinitive, or an infinitive phrase. So we must look at the word that comes immediately after to, and we see the word rest. Rest in this sentence is being used as a verb, so we have the beginning of an infinitive or an infinitive phrase. For is always the beginning of a prepositional phrase, so we can go ahead and put our marking right off the bat. Now that I have my beginnings marked down, I can now decide where they each end. Well, to rest has nowhere else to go, so we must stop at just a simple infinitive. For goes to for what? A good week, so I have a full prepositional phrase right there. In sentence number 2, Sammy left in the evening to attend the game. Well, I see the word in and I see the word to. In is the beginning of a prepositional phrase, so I'll mark that. And to, we need to decide if it's the beginning of a prepositional phrase, infinitive, or infinitive phrase. So once again, I look at the word that follows the word to. The word is attend. Attend is a verb, so therefore, that is the beginning of an infinitive. So now we can go back and find where they end. In is the beginning of a prepositional phrase, so in what? The evening. To attend we see as an infinitive, so we now need to see if it's part of an infinitive phrase. So we would now say, to attend what? The game. We have a full infinitive phrase. Sentence number 3, the girl read all the papers within the hour. What do I remember about these? Well, I see the word all, so I want to write the word of in there. I also see the word within, which is the beginning of a preposition. So now that I have my markings in, I can say within what? The hour is a full prepositional phrase. Now read the rest of the sentence. The girl read all of the papers. That sure does make sense, so we have what's called an implied prepositional phrase. Sentence number 4. After school, I plan to eat an Arby's roast beef. Well, right off the bat, I see the word after, which is the beginning of a preposition. I see the word to, but I must look at the word after it to determine if it's an infinitive or a prepositional phrase. Eat is a verb, so therefore to eat is my infinitive. Now I can go ahead and find out where they end. After what? School. To eat what? Roast beef. So I have in this sentence one of each. And finally, in the last sentence, they want both of the kids to spend the night. Well, I see the word both, and so I want to write the word of in there. I also see the word to, so I'm going to look at the word that comes immediately after. To spend is the verb, so to spend is an infinitive. To spend what? I have an answer, the night, so I have a full infinitive phrase. And at the beginning, they want both of the kids. Since that makes sense, I have an implied prepositional phrase. And now I am done with all of my prepositional phrases, implied prepositional phrases, infinitives, and infinitive phrases successfully.